You only live once. And I feel like if I'm able to make a difference on this planet and make it just a little bit better, then then I found it. Then I've done my job. Bindi Irwin, conservationist, zookeeper, and daughter of the late Steve Irwin. All right. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, then I want to thank you for giving me your time so early. Man, I'm going to have to work on those introduction there. I always seem to get tongue tied when I'm simply reading a quote. Like it shouldn't be that difficult, but for whatever reason, it poses me a challenge. Maybe it's the early morning hour. I don't really know, but I'm going to work on it. At any rate, got a few things up for today. Looking forward to this episode. Um, Four things basically we're going to be talking about Ray Epps, Jewish tunnels, Vivek Ramaswamy wanting to shut down the FBI, and then you might have saw it in the show notes there, a child rapper. So we're going to talk a little bit about some social stuff there. So this will be good. So let's dive right into it. We're going to talk about Ray Epps. Let's get that logo there up on the screen. All right, awesome. So let's dive in and talk about Ray Epps. So you may have noticed, or you may have seen, I don't want to say noticed, but you may have seen that Ray Epps is now being, um, he is, get this, the way they do this now. Give me just a second here. But Ray Epps has been sentenced, officially been sentenced. Now you might remember that for a while, Ray Epps, and if you don't know who he is, I'll show you in a moment. We have a video clip, but Ray Epps kind of went under the radar for a while. Like nobody was really talking about him except for the people that were looking at January 6th as, like either not a big deal or definitely not what people are hyping it up to be. People are hyping it up as, the day that we almost lost our democracy. And so the people that oppose that, myself included, those folks were looking and saying, well, okay, so they're going after all these people. What about this Ray Epps guy who seems to be in an awful lot of videos literally telling people, let's go into the White House? Like he literally this is not even like this ambiguous, like he kind of said this, or he could be interpreted as having said this. No, there's actual video of him saying, let's go into the White House. And so then this guy ends up not being punished in any way. So that's kind of interesting. So let's pull that up real quick and we'll see what we have here. So let's see here. How about this? All right. So this comes from Greg Price on Twitter. And I'll show you the video in a moment. Breaking Ray Epps, the only that is a bit distracting, isn't it? Let's take that out a little bit. Let's make that there. Breaking Ray Epps, the only January 6th protester who actually told people to go into the Capitol, has been officially sentenced to 1 year probation, $500 restitution, and 100 hours of community service. While many January 6th protesters are rotting in jail for nonviolent crimes, Epps escapes a prison term entirely. So that's kind of interesting, right? And let's watch a couple videos here because I think these videos are kind of interesting, actually. So let's see here. We will bring that up on the screen here. Tomorrow. All right, let's see here. Got a. There's a little montage of Ray Epps here. So let's cut over to that and let's take a watch. Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. So I want to pause here because I think that's this is probably my favorite clip of Ray Epps because he's like, tomorrow we need to go into the Capitol. And everybody's like, no, 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 no. This is a terrible idea. There it is. Good. Right. So this whole idea that he was a Fed, because this is part of the narrative, right? Like people are like, well, maybe he's a Fed, and other people are like, oh, how would you dare use how? Yeah, that doesn't even make sense, right? And then now that he's been sentenced, people are like, well, see, why would they sentence a Fed? That doesn't even make sense, And so it kind of pushes this idea, like this whole idea that the Feds were involved is just some conspiracy theory now that they all got busted. But in actuality, he said this the day before. He said, tomorrow we need to go into the Capitol. Tomorrow. And so the day before, people were calling him a Fed. I think that's pretty instructive. We need to keep that in mind when people say that's just a conspiracy theory. Yeah, well, it was a conspiracy theory long before the Capitol events happened. So that's pretty important.
Tomorrow, I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested. Well, let's not say it.
Right. See, there again, he's like, I don't even, I'll get arrested if I say it. Okay, well, let's not say it. Right. Like the people around him are like, okay, maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe these things that you're saying are not good. Right. So, and this is part of the story that doesn't really get told by everybody that's like, oh man, we almost lost our democracy. Okay. We almost lost our democracy to a bunch of people that in at least a large portion or some portion of the people had no intention whatsoever, by their very own words, on video, of doing anything crazy. They just wanted to protest.
I'll say it. All right. We need to go in.
Shut the fuck up, boomer.
To the Capitol. Based Fed posting? We need to go into the Capitol.
See, now they're making fun of him. They're like based Fed posting, right? Like like he keeps being called a Fed prior to the events at the Capitol.
Didn't see that coming. Okay. It's that direction. All right. No, Dave, but one more thing.
Yeah, so can we go up there? No?
When we go in,
Are we going to get arrested if we go up there?
you don't need to get
Did you
shot.
arrest us all?
And of course, this is the video that a lot of people were talking about, where he goes up and he whispers something into this guy's ear right before the barricade is broken down. And then you noticed, hopefully, that if I roll this back a little bit here, we roll it back, we notice that he whispers, but then Ray Epps just kind of stands. Like he said he was the one calling to go into the Capitol, and then he's just chilling there. Like he whispers and then he just stands there. Like now he claims in a video, I think he was interviewed, and he claims that he had said, "Hey, we're not here to do this, right? This is not what we're here for." It's hard to say, no evidence of what he did say, or what might have said. So it's just pure speculation at this point. Okay, so now we got him walking. He's going. Still got Ray Epps here in the shot. All right. So that was Ray Epps, a little compilation there of him, inciting people to go into the Capitol, whispering something in the ear of somebody right before all hell broke loose. And so it's very unclear exactly what his role was, but it doesn't seem like it seems like if the government is going to be punishing people for their involvement, and if people are going to be saying, hey, this was an insurrection and we almost lost our democracy, you would think that Ray Epps would be high up on their list. And originally, he wasn't, and people would kind of dismiss it. And they were like, oh, he's nobody, he's no big deal, right? And which was kind of weird. And then now that he's sentenced, people are going to be like, well, see, he got busted now. But his punishment is less than what other people's punishment is, even though we actually have more documentation of him inciting people, like the whole crowd. He's telling the whole crowd that they should go in. So I think it's kind of interesting. Now, me personally, here's my opinion on this. I think that we should limit any prosecution to people that harmed another person or destroyed property. That's it. If we have you on video, if we have evidence that you destroyed property or stole it, um, then yes, you should be punished for the crime of destruction of property or theft of property. If you harm somebody, if you hit somebody with something, right, whatever, then you should be punished for assault and battery or what have you, right? Those, that's it. Everybody else, call it a day. Quit using our resources on this. This is ridiculous. Like it's just an absurd thing. But we're definitely seeing what I would call a miscarriage of justice here, because you've got somebody that seems to be treated very favorably, and nobody has any clear reason why. All they do is they say, "Well, the FBI talked to him and he's good to go." Okay, and what was said? Why? Wait a minute. What's going on here? Like, why did he, of all people, right? It's not that I want him to go down, and I don't think most of my peers want him to go down. We just want to start seeing things at least be fair. I mean, if you're gonna punish people, at least be fair about it. So, all right. So let's move on. This next one kind of got me into a rabbit hole. So that was this one is kind of fun. This is the Jewish tunnels. So let's go and look at the Jewish tunnels. So I've got a video here again from, let's see here. Let's pull this up here. The way Twitter has done this now is making it very difficult, because when I go to my bookmarks and I click on one, it like pops it up on the side. I have to double click it to get to what I want. But let's see here. Why is it not wanting to work? All right. It's being very, very difficult with me here. Give me a second, folks. I apologize for the delay. I have everything set up, but it's just trying. They've changed how they do it. That's not what I wanted. Okay, so why is it not coming up? This is wild how the bookmarks are working right now. I apologize, folks, for this weird delay here. But as soon as I get it worked out, how to, uh, goodness, it keeps clicking on the wrong thing here. I don't know why Twitter has done this. They're making it very, very difficult. Um, let's see here. How do I get to it? All right. So they've changed the bookmarks on me. In fact, I don't know what's going on. I may just have to tell you about it. I don't know. There, I think I got it. Did I get it? No, I did not. Goodness. Why is this not working? All right. So anyway, this came from Raw Alerts. It says currently numerous law enforcement are at the scene of a riot at the, is it Chabad? Chabad? I don't know. I don't know how to say it, folks. I apologize. Headquarters in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where individuals tore wooden panels to prevent a cement truck from sealing off the recently discovered tunnels. Police intervened by ripping wooden panels to thwart the cement truck's actions. Um, uh, Police intervened by ripping, I think he wrote that incorrectly. The underground tunnels, secretly built by a group including members of the Jewish community about 6 months ago in an attempt to expand the iconic synagogue, were the focal point. Despite police intervention, numerous police refused to vacate the tunnel, leading to the arrest of at least 10 individuals. I think he wrote this wrong. Numerous people. No, I read that wrong. Despite police intervention, numerous people refused to vacate tunnels, leading to the arrest of at least 10 individuals after a scuffle with NYPD inside 770. So let's see if I can't pull the video up, and then we can take a look at the video here. All right. So now we'll figure out what in the world is going on with the bookmarks. But for now, here's the video, and you may have seen it and may have not, but here's what the video looks like of in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where they had these underground tunnels. A little rowdy there. All right, so this is a video of a Jewish man coming out of one of the tunnels, I guess. Apologize for that, folks. Working on my transition skills here. So that was pretty wild. Like, I didn't even know what to make of that. I know a lot of people are speculating online what exactly that might be. And one person actually, they said, probably trafficking organs again. Now that caught my attention. And I'm going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, if you don't mind. So let's put that up on the screen here. So they made that comment, and then they posted a screenshot of an old news article. So let me jump over to that, and I swear there's going to be a point here to this. So let's see. I'll go back and so organ trafficking. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. Is it going to let me zoom in? Okay. So for whatever reason, I cannot zoom in because nothing wants to cooperate with me this morning, but that's okay. Headline: Organ trafficking. Rabbis arrested over massive crime ring. U.S. agents have arrested 44 elected officials and Jewish rabbis in New Jersey in a huge anti-corruption sweep across the state. Charges of extortion, bribery, money laundering, and human organ trafficking were stunning, even for a state long notorious for official corruption and organized crime. Now, this is dated back July of 2009. So, what does this have to do with today with these secret tunnels? Well, I'm not suggesting that they're engaging in organ selling because I don't know. Nobody really knows at this point. Now, some people have made some very interesting comments online, and they have pointed out if this were some other community, like a Hispanic community, a lot of conservatives would be jumping all over the place to try to figure out, does it have to do with illegal immigration? And I think there's a certain fairness there. You know, we were just talking a moment ago about the unfair treatment of Ray Epps, but also conservatives are not, while the unfair treatment of Ray Epps is kind of more like the government mistreating, I guess you can call it conservatives, and the conservatives are complaining. On the other hand, conservatives themselves aren't exactly so clean because they're kind of taking, kid gloves here, if you will, with the Jewish community. And there's been a lot of criticism of the conservatives lately. You've got Ron DeSantis, who just recently suggested that he was, or not suggested, but he said that he was going to make it easier for Jewish students to come to universities here in Florida. So you have this conflict here with conservatives where they're not really being consistent themselves because they would treat one particular group one way and they'd be demanding all kind of answers and be jumping over everything they could to find those answers. But then over here, when you have these weird tunnels, there doesn't seem to be nearly as much outrage from those same conservatives, right? There is some people that are like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I think it's appropriate. Like, "Hey, what is going on?" Right? It's not anti-Semitism to say, "Hey, maybe this particular community here has been doing some things they shouldn't be doing." And so now let's bring this back, and I want to talk about this organ selling because that really caught my attention. So I looked up the story about organ because I was curious. And here's what I found. Let me pull that up, and I actually got this already there, so we're good to go here. So this is actually from 2014. So remember, there was a video. Just if you're tuning in, so let's tie all this in together ish. There is a video of like a little mini Jewish riot over in Crown Heights in New York because there was these tunnels that were found. And like everybody's wanting to know what these tunnels are. And so then somebody suggested that it was probably organ selling. Now we don't know if it's organ selling. It may be nothing, maybe something super simple. Who knows? So that led me down to reading, and that story that this person posted was from 2009. So this is a follow up to that 2009 story. Black market kidney broker Levi Rosenbaum released from prison. So the man went to prison for this, and this is out of 2014. A man who prosecutors said styled himself as the quote Robin Hood of kidneys is out of prison after being the first person convicted in federal court of profiting from the illegal sale of human organs. He's an Israeli citizen and he won't be deported because federal immigration officials found that his crime was not one of moral turpitude that would have subjected him to being kicked out of the US. It illustrates the intersection between legality and morality, Schulman said. This is his lawyer. Rosenbaum, now 63, was arrested in 2009 in what became the biggest corruption case ever in New Jersey. He had been living legally in the US. He pleaded guilty to illegally selling human organs in 2011 and served more than 2 years in prison. He was released this week from federal correctional facility at New Jersey's Fort Dix, and Schulman said he has returned home in New York City's Brooklyn borough. All right. So Rosenbaum pleaded guilty to brokering the sale of 3 kidneys, buying them from people in Israel for as little as $10,000, then selling them to U.S. patients who did not qualify for transplants or did not want to wait. The cost of the sale was over $100,000, and the operations were performed at top U.S. hospitals. So this is like a big deal. We're not even talking. This isn't like the underground where we hear about somebody who wakes up in a bathtub full of ice and their kidneys gone, right? Like this is like a very sophisticated situation that's going on. Let's see. There was a couple more things here. While he pleaded guilty to 3 counts, authorities said he brokered many more kidney transplants and made millions from the deals. If he was drugging the people or knocking them out to get their kidneys, Schulman said, that would have been a deportable offense. But he said that was not the case. Both participants were willing. Schulman said his clients' deals saved lives. One could contend that letting somebody die, Schulman said, is also immoral. I agree. So, what does any of this have to do with the tunnels, or what does it have to do with Ray Epps? Well, I don't believe that we should criminalize the selling of organs. Okay. I'm going to tie this in together a little bit here and just work with me here. So I don't think we should criminalize the selling of organs. And in fact, my favorite economist, Walter Williams, doesn't either. So let's read what he wrote well, I'm not going to read the whole thing, in 2002. I think he says some really interesting stuff here. And then I'm going to bring that all back in together. So he writes this article in 2002. So this is many years prior to the rabbi getting arrested. And in that article, he kind of, and I'll put it in the show notes so you can read the whole thing. He said, how might an organ transplant market work? Lloyd Cohen, a law professor at George Mason University, envisions letting people contract in advance to permit the harvesting of any usable organs when they die. The money earned would become part of their estate. Many people are offended by the notion of human body parts becoming commodities for sale. There's at least a tiny bit of inconsistency because there is a market for human blood, semen, and hair. How many vital things in our lives do we depend on altruism or voluntary donations to provide? Food is vital, water is vital, so are clothing and housing. We don't depend on altruism and voluntary donations to provide these goods, and for good reason. There'd be massive shortages. Why should we depend on altruism or voluntary donations to provide what we may one day need more urgently than food, water, clothing, or housing? All objections to organ sales reduce to either nonsense, ignorance, or arrogance. And then he goes on to talk about some of those. All right. Now it's my job to tie all this in. Like, what does this have to? Because again, like I said, we don't know what the issue with the tunnels is. So let's assume for a moment there is no violent crime here. That's my guess, that there's no violent my first guess is that there's no violent crime. Now, if there is, if they've been trafficking people or there've been any kind of, things where there's violent crime going on or there's, uh, lack of consent, right? Like, so maybe teenagers or kids, something to do with them where they're in a situation that they simply cannot consent, then none of this has anything to do with, none of what I have to say has anything to do with that. That should be punished. End of story. So this is why we should figure out what's going on, right? So that we know if there's like some sort of violent crime or something where people are unable to consent. But if it's not the case, if it is a case similar to trafficking organs, which should not be a crime, then we should use this opportunity to remove that from our statutes, right? Because as Walter Williams has pointed out, it's, you know, we depend on many other things being served or provided to us through the free market. And I don't want to say provided, but I mean, we acquire them. We're able to get them and access them through the free market. We should also be able to get organs through the free market. And presumably, now from my reading of this story, all the participants were very willing. So there was no deception. They simply said, I'll give you $10,000 for your kidney. And then I'm going to charge somebody else a whole lot more money because it requires me first acquiring the kidney. Then if I have to do it clandestinely. I think that's a word. I also have to, coordinate with top hospitals to be able to provide this service. So there's a lot of things that were involved that raised the cost from $10,000 to $150,000. And of course, again, everything is underground, if you will. So therefore, that increases all the costs altogether. So I think similar to Ray Epps, some of the things that we are criminalizing should not be criminal. We should not be criminalized. Ray Epps should not be criminalized for telling people to go into the Capitol. As we heard, even though he did say it, he didn't say go in there and be destructive, go in there and harm people. He just said go into the Capitol. Now, you could make an argument that, hey, you're not supposed to be in there. Okay, fine. Then you simply punish the people for being there, I suppose, if it's absolutely necessary. But from a libertarian standpoint, we have all these laws and people are getting tripped up on laws and we are punishing people in multiple ways for laws that probably shouldn't exist in the first place. Okay. And that is part of the problem because he said, let's go into the Capitol. That should not be a crime. He should not be punished at all. But also, many of the other people that are being punished, they shouldn't be punished for whatever they did as well, unless, like I said a moment ago, it has to do with uh, violence towards somebody else or property. So if they destroyed property, if they stole property, right? Beyond that, there are very few things. I mean, I guess if you could say like, hey, this inner area you really should not supposed to be in, and we have guards, or whatever. But most of the people that are being charged for silly things, in my opinion. So, and I think that similarly, we need to figure out what's going on with these tunnels and then take that opportunity rather than punish people, which is what we do in this country. We just keep finding ways to punish people rather than punish them, evaluate and say, should that be a punishable offense in the first place? Should they have, whatever it is that they were doing, should they have had to or been put into a position where they felt, hey, it was a good idea for us to make these tunnels? And I think this kind of direction for our country is going to be how we make the best society for us. Because right now we're criminalizing people, we're punishing them, we're throwing the book at them, and we're not really doing it fairly. So that brings me to Vivek Ramaswamy. So he wants to shut down the FBI. So let me see if I can't get these bookmarks to work. I don't know why. Oh my gosh, that is so annoying. Why? I'm just going to show it to you. I'm going to show you what's going on here, folks. Oh, you know what? I forgot to show you a video. Oh, we moved on. I had another video from Ray Epps, but because my bookmarks are acting all squirrely right now and I can't get them to show up on the main screen, um, I'm not going to be able to show it to you. So we'll just have to move on from that. I think it's a 30-second clip. You know what? No, I'm going to show you this one clip because this goes back to Fed stuff before we get into the FBI. So this is actually worthwhile. So let's do that. Let's back up to Ray Epps a little bit before we jump into the FBI thing. So let's go here. All right, there we are. All right, let's play this.
Here it showed Ray Epps
There he is.
pacing back and forth, a short way from Baked Alaska, who seemed to have his attention as he looked over in his direction repeatedly. 13 times by hour, stopped and pointed his camera right at him, snagging a photo before putting his phone down and walking away, only to re-emerge on camera roughly a minute later, taking another photo in the same area. Here it
All right. So the reason I wanted to show you that, and I apologize, I'm really trying to weave a story here, and I'm doing my best, folks. So let's get me back on the screen here a little bit more bigger. All right. So jumping back really quickly to this Ray Epps. So I don't think that he should necessarily be punished just for some of the things that, I don't think he should be punished. I don't think some other people should be punished. I don't think that rabbis should be punished for, brokering organ sales. As long as everything was done with consent, with proper consent, then I'm okay with this, right? I read that Walter Williams has argued in 2002, long before any of these events, that there is good reason to put organ sales on the free market because it actually helps people and it would actually reduce the cost, because now somebody could come to me and they could say, hey, DL, when you die, can I have one of your kidneys? And then I might say, well, yeah, that's a good idea. You're going to pay me $10,000. And they'll say, yes, I'm going to pay you $10,000. And I say, okay, great. Now it gives me incentive to maintain my body. Right. And so now we've reduced the amount of criminalization of people. We've improved their lives because we give people more access to things. We stop throwing people in jail. However, now we jump over to the FBI. This is where that video I just showed you kind of plays a role, because a lot of people are saying, hey, he seems to have been a Fed. People were calling him a Fed the day before the Capitol events, the events at the Capitol. And they did it in multiple situations where he was like, hey, we should go into the Capitol. And they're like, no, no, no. And then they start chanting, Fed, Fed, Fed. So what does Vivek and the FBI have to do with any of this? Well, Vivek wants to shut down the FBI. And I wish I could, I don't know why. You know what? Let's do this. Let me see if I can't just quickly scroll down here to whatever it is that he was saying. I don't know why it's not working. I will find another way. Whoa. I will find another way to do this in the future so that we do not have this weird delay. I'm going to have to do a whole bunch of editing when I do the audio version here, because this is just going to be so weird. All right. So let me pull this up on the screen. Goodness, this is so aggravating and somewhere between that and embarrassing. But anyway, here we are. All right. So he says, I'll shut down the FBI and ATF. And here's one more reason why. A voter in Iowa recently reminded me of a story of Ruby Ridge and the Weaver family. In 1992, Randy Weaver sold a sawed-off shotgun to a federal informant and was then surrounded at his cabin for refusing to appear in court. First, they killed his dog. Then they shot and killed his son, 14-year-old Samuel Weaver. His wife, Vicky, was also shot and killed by an FBI sniper while holding their 10-month-old daughter inside their house. Weaver was later acquitted and awarded a $3 million settlement by the Department of Justice. Another classic case of entrapment and disproportionate politicized abuse of federal police power. I will shut down toxic 3-letter agencies like the FBI and ATF, that are beyond the point of incremental reform using my constitutional authority as US president to do it. And then he's got this graphic here, and I'll put the graphic up on the screen a little bit better for you so that you can see it. There we are, how we will shut down the ATF. So this is the ATF specifically, and then he's kind of got this like little mapping of all the different departments and where they would go and whatnot. But even more to the point, he actually tells us how he would do this in, what did I not get that up in here? So let me get that in here. Goodness, today is just a rough show, just all around. But then he's tongue tied here. So he's specifically talking about the ATF, but he's also addressed the FBI, and he did it on the Patrick David Bett show. So let me pull that up really quickly, and let's see if we can't get things finally working. All right, perfect. And give me a second. I'll get some audio here for you, just because we are a little behind on this.
20,000 of them are in
All
back
right,
office
back it up.
functions.
in FBI.
Shut down the FBI. Hardcore answer.
What do you do with CIA?
And I'll tell you about FBI. It's not just a slogan to me. 35,000 employees. 20,000 of them are in back office functions. That's where the politicization comes from. They're going to have to go home and find honest work in the private sector, where there's a job shortage anyway. So maybe it'll be good for everybody. A job surplus, I should say. So then the other piece of this is the 15,000 agents who are on the front lines, some of whom are doing good work. Move them to greater areas of specialization, say in the U.S. Marshals, which has been busting up child sex trafficking rings, to the DEA, which has been much more effective fighting fentanyl and the spread of it in the U.S. than the FBI has, to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network in the U.S. Department of Treasury, complex white-collar theft cases. So that's what I was saying earlier when I say, do you want reform or revolution? It sounds scary at first. Shut down the FBI. I think we will better protect citizens of this country from what the laws were supposed to protect those citizens from, but without the politicization and without the rot of that bureaucracy. I think on the CIA, I'm going to just be very honest with you guys. I'm going deep on the administrative state, on the areas where I've come out with exact, precise shutdown plans, from the FBI to the Department of Education to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to others. We've already been very transparent. We're working on the CIA. It's a complicated beast. And am I deeply skeptical of our national security establishment? Do I think we've been told the truth over the last 25 years, the last 100 years in this country? No, I do not. But I'm also going to be laser focused on actually getting this right. And anything that I tell you that we're going to do, we're going to do it. So on the FBI, we have a very clean plan. It's exactly what I'm going to tell you we're going to do. There are going to be dramatic changes to the CIA as well. It will not be a shutdown. I don't think that that's actually viable or will serve our national interests, given where we are in our position vis-a-vis China in particular. But there will be dramatic changes to make sure that American citizens don't suffer at the hands of a backdoor closet monarchy when we fought a revolution in 1776 to say the government is accountable to its people rather than the other way around. So major changes, details before the end of the primary to come. But that's what I've said on the FBI.
So if you like this.
All right. So let's, so that was pretty good. Apologies, folks. Let me make some changes here. All right. So that's Vivek talking about how he's going to shut down 3-letter agencies. And the key component there was that he was aiming for the administrative component that is bloated. And what happens when you have a bloated administrative element in your organization is that they need to find things to do, right? They need to justify their existence. And so what he's kind of saying is like, you've got these elements here that don't need to justify their existence because they're doing good work, presuming they are. And so he simply wants to take them and pluck them out and put them somewhere else. And then I think he said 20,000 people, he would just say, hey, go find some work elsewhere because you're not needed here. And we don't need this organization. Now, I agree with him. I think that this is a good step, and maybe it goes further, but I think this is a very good first step. And so I can appreciate from Vivek this plan that he's laying out, and he seems to be very clear. He seems to have a very well thought out on what he can do and what is appropriate, what's going to work, right? At least in his mind. And now, what does that mean about all the other agents? If they are actually doing good work, they are actually finding violent criminals, people that are harming other people, then yes, I'm okay with them. Okay. That may not mean that I'm okay with how they always do their job or all the laws that are on the books necessarily, surrounding that and how they're allowed to, approach their investigations and whatnot. But I can appreciate a law enforcement that is actually tackling crimes of one person against another person, like crimes against their person, right? Crimes against somebody's ability to consent. This would be children. So I appreciate that. And I don't take issue there. How does all this fit together? Well, you've got Ray Epps, who people think are a Fed. Seems like he might be. If he is a Fed, it seems like he's part of that administrative staff and needs to go. If he's not a Fed, if he's just an informant, then he might also still need to go. And that may happen by reducing the amount of resources that are available in the FBI. Because when you have 20,000 extra people, when you have all this additional funding that maybe you don't need, then you get to use it in ways that are maybe not so productive for your American citizens. And if Ray Epps really was instigating things to see how far people would go, as people are suggesting, then yes, that is a problem because we literally then have the FBI making a situation much worse than it would have been otherwise without them. That's how we got the Governor Whitmer issue in Michigan, right? Same thing with the issue of organs. We have all these laws on the books that maybe don't need to be on the books. So then we create organizations to enforce those laws. And it becomes this self-serving situation where we create more laws. We need more agents. We need more agents. So we create, we have more agents. So we create more laws or reasons for them to exist. And so it becomes this kind of cycle of dependency between the two. And so Vivek saying, hey, I'm going to get in and start chopping it up and start getting rid of it. I think it's great. Now, some people might argue and say, well, Dale, you're a libertarian. Are you supporting? No, I'm not supporting him. I just support the ideas. I think our libertarian candidates could do even better. And that's for them to figure out. That's for them to sell the American public on. That's for them to say, you know what? How'd you like what Vivek was saying? Well, maybe you should hear what I'm saying, right? So I'm still supporting the libertarian candidates, but I can also appreciate at least one Republican who seems to be going down the right path, even if it's not necessarily always the path that I approve. That I like. I don't know. I don't agree with everything that he says. There are some things where I'm like, dude, seriously, that's crazy. But this particular, I think he's right on this, and I think this is a way that we can start reducing we can reduce the amount of people that we think are feds at events. We can reduce the nature of these events to some degree, right? We can reduce the I'm trying to think of how to say it. We can reduce the incidence of weird things like Jewish tunnels if in fact this turns out to be something that is based on a law that we could argue should not be a law in the first place, such as organ sales. Now, again, I don't know what the tunnels were for. They might have just been tunnels so that they could move around during COVID. That's one thing that people suggested. Other people suggested that the tunnels were too new and the timeline doesn't match up. I really don't know. But it could be something simple like, hey, we just wanted mobility to be a little bit more discreet, for whatever reason that maybe has nothing to do with anything illegal whatsoever. Or it could be that there were some illegal things going on. Some of those illegal things could be very terrible and people need to go to jail for them. And some things could be like, okay, it is against the law, but should it be against the law? So I appreciate what Vivek is doing. This is something that I can get behind just as an idea. Everybody's going to have to earn everybody's vote. So we'll see how that goes. But that's what I've got. All right. I did want to play one more thing, which has nothing to do with those three. Absolutely nothing. But I did want to play it. Do I have time? I have time. Let's play. Let's see if we can play. Let's see if we can get Twitter to work. I think it'll work on this one because the bookmark is the very first one. And so it allows me to Anyway, so it allows me to navigate to where I want to be. So let me pull this up on the screen. We'll play this. This comes from Clarkson Lawson. If you've watched the show before, you know that I really enjoy his social takes, much more than probably anybody else. So let's bring Clarkson Lawson up on the screen. You may or may not have seen this video. I think there's some profanity in it, but bear with me, folks. So here's what we've got.
You mean to tell me that this is what we're teaching our children? This boy can't be older than 10 years old. We shouldn't have to explain why we don't glorify sex and violence, but it's getting to a point where we have to relearn why we do things. First, we don't glorify sex because sex is an act focused on short-term pleasure. When you live a life focused on obtaining short-term pleasure, you end up becoming very unfulfilled because there's never enough to actually sustain you. You also end up never creating anything of long-term value because we all know that anything that is worth a damn in this world is not easily obtained or created. Now, if you're focused on pursuing pleasure and instant gratification, you're not going to put in the work or want to put in the work to create anything. And I think we all understand why we don't glorify violence, so I'm not going to explain that. We have failed at teaching these values to the parents of our next generation. And if we don't course correct, our future leaders will be a complete and utter disaster. I pray for this kid, and I pray that he uses his talents in the future to rap about things that inspire people to do good.
All right, so that was awesome. Once again, Clarkson absolutely nails it. There's not even a whole lot for me to say after the fact. He just nails it. Like, yes, we are failing our kids, and we need to stop. Like, I think it's great that this kid seems to have a talent, and he wants to be a rapper. That's great. It's, to me, it's the same thing as if a child wanted just to be a singer and they grew up to be a pop star singer, right? Like, it doesn't matter, rap star, pop star, rock star, whatever the case may be. But I do think that we need to be mindful of what kind of content we permit our young kids to have access to and to promote themselves. And part of that reason kind of goes back to this idea of mine. I don't believe that young kids can necessarily consent to these kind of ideas. So we as adults, not as the government doesn't need to. This is totally something that society can handle. We just need to say, look, that's not appropriate for young kids. Period. End of story. There's plenty in the world for young kids to get excited about, to talk about, to sing about, whatever the case, to make videos about. There's plenty of things. They don't need to get into the adult things that they don't even understand, nor could they consent to in any way, shape, or form. So kudos to Clarkson once again for nailing it. I love how he, breaks it down in literally like a minute clip, and he's able to really present in a very articulate argument why this is not a good thing or is a good thing, right? So again, kudos to him. All right, folks, that is my show. I need to get going. I've got some appointments today, but I do want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me weekdays, 7 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. And then again, Sundays at 7 p.m. with my co-host, Susan Hogarth, to discuss LP happenings. Make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you'd rather, subscribe to my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com. You can go to rumble.libertydad.com. Let me know how I'm doing by leaving a comment. I do read them, even if I don't always respond to them, but I usually try to respond to them as well. And lastly, remember, if you are a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. For now, catch you next time.